Hello and welcome to this live stream of today's public meeting brought to you by Downtown Gun Rapids Inc. We will begin shortly. Please keep your sound on and we'll see you soon.
Good. All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Monroe North TIFA. Thank you all for coming. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the April meeting. That was sent out in the packet. I hope you all had an opportunity to review them. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Support.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions or corrections? All right. All in favor of the approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is the acceptance of the financials through May 31st. And Tricia isn't here, so I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. But if you recall, this will look very similar to other financials you've seen. She did identify in the cover that we've spent approximately 12% of our budget for the fiscal year to date. And the statement C is the one that we need to approve. That's our schedule of expenditures. And I may sound like a broken record at each meeting, but this is our share of the cost for the administration in support of the TIFA. So some very small items, but it's our percentage share of those. So. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Kate. Any questions? All right. All in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Thank you. That carries. All right. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of the 2024 budget. Tim, you want to take that one, just to explain where we've been to date?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I think you're all familiar now with our budget process fairly well. So you recommended it back in May to the City Commission. City Commission heard it also in May, and it's now coming back to you for adoption. There were no changes based on what was previously recommended. So everything that was included that you saw is in there, and this is the final step in making sure that we're set to go for our fiscal year, which begins July 1.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, KM. Any questions? Again, this is more formality. We've reviewed all of this information already, so thank you. All in favor of the adoption of the 2024 budget for the Monroe North TIFA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Thank you. Okay, the next item, and we've seen this one before too, a big part of what we have been able to do so far is support the dash that serves Monroe North and other and connects us to other parts of the city. So before us today is a proposal to extend that memorandum, right, and continue the funding.
Exactly.
You want to take the details, Tim?
Yeah, great setup. I think takeaway is that we want to continue to support DASH services, and specifically in Monroe North. So request before you is to approve your funding from the FY24 budget. That is in the amount of $100,000. So that's a slight increase from where we've been in prior years. We were previously at $80,000. So a little bit of bump to essentially to cover the increase in cost to run the service. And then a reminder, if you haven't seen, that there was a rerouting done recently. The launch back in May obviously still runs right through Monroe North. The change is that it's consolidated the route, so there's one route with the service running clockwise or counterclockwise. We are still on 15-minute frequencies, or I should say back to 15-minute frequencies, and with late night service on Friday and Saturday. So those are sort of the quick highlights. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Start.
They're hoping, it's really a function of driver shortage at this point. I haven't heard an update on when they think it'll come back, but we'll continue to ask and push for it.
Do we have any rider stats, or is it too soon?
Ridership is in the packet, in the vitals packet, but we can, so we'll continue to track.
And that ridership is from the old route, is that fair to say?
Yeah, so the new route went in place in May, so it wouldn't be reflected in those vitals yet. But you can at least see how things have progressed since the changes.
But the new route is simpler. Has everyone seen the route changes? I think everyone around the table is familiar with it. Good. All right. Okay. Do I have a motion to support the DASH funding?
I'll move approval.
Support.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Any questions? All right. Everyone in favor of the support of the DASH funding, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion's carried. All right. Tim, we're up to 6 already. The
Look at that.
President
All right.
CEO report. We're moving
setting
right along. Sorry,
We're
guys.
setting a record here. Just a couple things I wanted to
A
highlight.
little competition from our DDA this year.
First, if you didn't see commission yesterday, a public hearing has been set to look at heights in the downtown area. So the public hearing's happening July 11. We have a map. I can send the map out if you haven't seen it. But essentially what we're trying to do is allow for greater density in downtown. The area in Monroe North is the DH2A, so it would allow potentially up to 20 stories by right, at least in a portion of the district. But we worked really closely with the planning department on it, very supportive of it, as we think it'll help drive density and get to our housing goals. So the broad approach was to simplify it as much as possible, and also looking at the riverfront, trying to provide greater access through development. So I want to make sure you're aware of that and track that as it moves forward. Also of interest, I think to all of you, is that the construction should be starting on the Coldbrook roundabout at Coldbrook, Monroe, and Ottawa. That's been talked about for a number of years. The construction should start right after 4th of July and would run through November. So a little bit of disruption up in the neighborhood, but ultimately we think it'll be good for mobility and traffic up there. And then I guess 2 other things. One is the DGRI grant agreement with the DNR has been executed. So that will be, sets a stage for us to get the $55 million into DGRI. Hopefully soon. We'll have to be thoughtful about when the funds come in, but that'll help to accelerate some of the work on the Grand River Greenway. And not specifically in Monroe North, but 2 projects that are moving forward quickly on the riverfront are Lion Square and the Public Museum. Those are both finished with design and should be out for bid here by the end of the month. So excited to see that. And then lastly, just 2 activation updates for you all. One is on the futsal courts on the west side. We're doing some programming with City Parks as well as Soccer Rebellion to have host classes over there for youth. And then at Canal Park, every Saturday through August, there will be kayak rentals available. So folks can go get in the river if they so choose. Those are my highlights.
Thank you,
But
Tim.
I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, any questions for Tim from the board? Yeah, Jim.
Not sure whether to phrase this during, in response to your report, since you brought it up, or in board member discussion, but I'm curious about the height issue that you mentioned, and my understanding is that currently you can have that additional height if you provide some affordable housing or something like that. And given what I hear a lot about downtown in terms of unhoused people downtown, I'm concerned about the loss of that incentive. I recognize that we weren't getting the construction that we want, but I wonder about the both and there. What can we do to incentivize that? Is there anything we can do with that change to also include some kind of incentive for more affordable housing?
Yeah, and I know this came up a little bit at the commission meeting yesterday. I think what we've seen is that the zoning code is not the best place to address some of these issues that we all know are going on. And so we wanted to simplify it and reflect how development is happening, recognizing though that there are other areas where we can still address some of these problems. So at the DDA this morning, particularly on the unhoused We supported funding that the city also had for community rebuilders to have that program going. We also know that downtown broadly still has the highest share of income restricted housing in the city. And so recognizing it's still a need, I think, and maybe just to extend beyond that, that we need housing at all price points. And if downtown, if we can allow for greater density, we think we can see more development happening. So a long way of saying the zoning code, I think, has gotten to a point and has long been viewed as a way to help address a lot of problems in the city. I think by simplifying it and using it in its intended way for land use decisions, I think is the right way to go, especially since the incentives for height were just not being used the way that we hoped.
I wonder, Tim, can we pull up the
Yeah,
just so everybody can see it? Is that
Yep,
possible?
let me go.
And then let me add on to this, Commissioner, because we talked about it quite a bit yesterday. So yesterday we set the public hearing for July 11th. So our planning department went back and looked since we put in that kind of bonus structure. And we haven't had a single developer use it because they can't make the capital stack work and meet the requirements to get the bonus. So no one has used it. And so it's, of course, disappointing because when we created that system, we thought it would incent affordable housing and mixed income projects, and it just hasn't resulted in that. So we talked about it yesterday, and here you can see the changes that are being proposed. And then what we talked about is how do we use our economic development incentives to incent and support affordable housing and mixed income projects. And now with I don't know if you're following the legislation in Lansing, but out of committee yesterday and out of the House and Senate, and we're hoping it gets to the governor's desk soon, is the housing TIF package. So the Senate bills 129 through 132. Those will create another tool to support affordable housing and kind of mixed income housing projects, as well as a transformational brownfield. So we're hopeful that through other mechanisms, we can incent large-scale projects through that, and it's more appropriate to use our economic development tools than to try to bake it into land use. So that was the bulk of our conversation yesterday, because we shared that concern. But the reality is it didn't result in any of our intended goals. So,
That's all.
yeah.
And this is just for reference, this is the proposal map. So this corresponds to here. So DH2A could get up to 20 in that area. And then the Grand River overlay, as I mentioned, they sort of changed the structure a little bit so that there's a high incentive now in the overlay to add river access, essentially. And I think there's still an element of public art that is within that, but primarily focused on if you provide public river access, you get a pretty significant bonus that we think will help realize our goals. So.
Yeah, so we'll have the public hearing and then likely vote on this. And then the City Commission, in July, we're also having a joint meeting of the full Planning Commission and the full City Commission. And we're gonna be looking at a handful of other potential zoning code changes to address some of the housing needs. We're gonna look at our language around accessory dwelling units. We're looking at some of our language on infill in neighborhoods. What else is on the list? There's like 4 or 5 zoning code changes we're gonna look at that we believe right now are a barrier to some of the housing development we wanna see, especially infill development. So I think it's a Thursday in July that we're doing that joint meeting.
Thank you for clarifying. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is that helpful, Jim?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Any other questions for Tim or the group? So we'll move to public comment. All right, we'll close public comment. Any board member discussion? Khadija?
We have the Monroe Business Association will have our annual summer picnic on August 16th.
Nice.
All right.
It'll be 12 to 1, and it's actually going to be in 6th Street Park this year.
Oh.
So we're hoping for a little bit of shade cover. It's usually a very warm day. And, since last year was our first year that we kind of got caught, we had to actually go for a permit to hold the picnic in a public space, even though it was on private property. We just decided that because we had to go for the permit anyway, we're gonna do it in the park and right along the river. There's some shade cover, and so it should be lovely. You're all invited.
Why do you have to get a permit?
I don't know, we had to go, I had somebody just email me from the city that said, hey, you need a permit, even though it was in Landmark Lofts parking lot.
Yeah.
So, and they caught me literally less than a week before the picnic last year. So I dropped everything and hurried up and got that done and had to do a drawing and everything, so. Yeah, so this year I'm planning for it, and we've already started the permitting process. We're working with Office of Special Events, and yep.
Well, it's always a fun time, and
Good.
thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
You're all welcome. It's good food and great people, so thank you. Any other board member discussion?
You know, not a discussion, but just because I know this body is very active in the space around housing and affordable housing. Last night at our commission meeting, we also approved funding for Next Step of West Michigan for their project on Garden Street, which will include 17 tiny homes and apartments, and then they'll expand their work development program. So we supported that with revolving fund dollars from our brownfield and then a brownfield incentive. So to the tune of just over $400,000. They're hoping to break ground yet this summer. And they already received approval through planning, and those tiny homes will support individuals who they work with through Next Step and Mel Trotter, as well as individuals who are unsheltered. So just an FYI, an update on that project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
We ran through it quick, but we appreciate your attendance.
Good work, Chair.
Yeah.
Did I beat?
A little friendly competition. I think